Welcome team. This is a site planner overview training. Really the purpose of this is to help you get more familiar inside of Site Planner and to feel more confident updating and managing your own content. Right, so I'm going to go over here to Site Planner. This is our content management system tool. Right, so this one here with the crayon. Easy enough, all I did was just open it up. First thing I'll notice, there are two sides, Content Explorer and Site Planner. All right, so Content Explorer over here on the left side, best way to think of it is as our library. So what do I mean by that? If I expand this caret here, this is where all your content is stored for your website. This could be unused content, maybe just recently made content, right? So anything that's being used on your website, maybe in the past, currently, this was all made here inside of your library. Right, so over here on the left side, you'll notice all these different folders. Right, so these are your different content. And we'll go over the types later on. So these are the different content types, all organized into these different folders. You'll notice if I actually come to one of these, right, and I right click, I'll see an add item feature. So key difference between Content Explorer and Site Plan, I can only make new content inside of Content Explorer. So if I come over here now to the right side, this is Site Plan. I'm going to go ahead and expand this again. You notice actually even the layout's a little bit different for Site Plan. So what is the Site Plan? Best way to explain Site Plan is as your live website. Right? So anything that's live, published, this is what users can see on the front end. So I'm just going to come over here to my website. So not the dashboard, we're not going to focus on the dashboard for this training, but just here my actual website. I know this is my website because it has this chain link here. This represents our site channels, right? And typically we'll just say your name for your website, right? So I see that, I'm going to right click it and hit preview. Right, easy enough. I can see my website just like that from Site Planner. All I had to do is right click it right here in the Site Plan online site channel, right click, hit preview. Right, so hopefully we see the key difference here. Site Plan is your published live website. Users can see whatever is on the Site Plan, right? Because it's published onto the actual pages in the website. So where did all the content on these pages, if for example, where did all the content inside of these pages come from? Right, all of this content was made in our library, Content Explorer. So if I come back already here at the very top, you'll notice I don't have that add item. So I can only make new content in our library, not in Site Plan. I can, whenever I'm ready, use all that content material in Content Explorer and bring it over into a page. And so we'll go through that a little bit later. Right, hopefully we're understanding the key difference between Content Explorer and Site Plan. So now we'll jump back into a little bit more of Site Plan and really understand more about how site structure works inside of Site Plan, how you can make new pages and edit and manage your content. So I'm all the way here at all pages, right? And I see everything from here, right? All the pages being used on the website. There's my home page. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hit edit page just so we can understand, right? How does the page structure work when you make a new page? So I see here the name, the title, and the index. So key things here, right? So the home is meant for the internal system, right? This name here, home, that's for right here inside my system. For the name, I see this is the home page because it says home here. If I changed it, were to say something different, maybe like global search, it would say global search just like it does here. Here's the title. The title will appear here in the tab. Do you see how that says home right there? If I were to go to, let's say maybe a give page, well, notice, right, this changes to give. So, what is the title? The name that appears here instead of the tab. The alias, whatever appears afterwards, right, after that slash. So alias, another way to think of it is like the URL, very important. So this one here is called the index. The index URL is very special. It reserves it for key aspects like things for the logos, whatever is meant to refer users back to the home page. So in other words, index is reserved for home pages only, or whatever is the main page you want users to go to. Maybe if that is the give page, right, you have a give page acting as the home page, it will have that index alias. which is why we can never change the alias here for the home page. You might have already noticed, right? So here on my gift page, this is the same thing right here, right? There's the alias. Just to show you here. So this is give here in the alias. There's the give in the URL. Perfect. Okay, but when I go back to the home page, what happens to that /index? So the index is actually invisible when it comes to the URL. And that's when it makes it known in our system. This is meant to act as the index page, the home page, the main page. So you actually never see that index appear in the URL. So key structure, right? When I make a new page, what am I going to be deciding? I'm going to be giving it the name, the title, and the alias. And that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new page. You can choose to put it inside one of these folders. We mainly put things into folders for organizational purposes, right? To organize different pages in terms of what they do, functionality, and things like that. So I'm not doing anything special here too, right? I just want to be able to access this test page. So I'm going to go over here to the All Pages folder, and I'm going to hit Add Page. Right, easy enough. Test. It has the title, has the alias already made for me, and I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. Now, if you want, you can also input information, metadata, if redirects are needed. We don't need any of that. We're just trying to create a simple page here. Once you do that, name, title, alias, you're done. I'm going to hit Save and Close. And just like that, we just made a new page. Pretty exciting. And so you'll notice there's nothing really in my page. I'll notice right here this little newsletter subscribe. So this is actually part of assigned content, which we'll get into. Right, nothing else is on my page. If I go over here to select the home page, right, you'll notice we have all these different content, all these different boxes. So it's definitely not empty like my new page. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and preview my page that has nothing on it. Okay, so technically, right, when I open it up, there should be nothing on this page. It should be completely blank. And I know it's my test page because it says test 3 over here. So why is there still content on this page? So all of the content that you see here refers to assigned content. So very cool. So whenever you create a new page inside of all pages, it's going to assign already content that's been made to that page. And so assigned content refers to content that's already been made and is automatically assigned to all any new pages, current pages, right, to give them the exact same information. So here we have things like the logos, header menus. If there is a flyout menu, right, you have a flyout menu here in this corner. It expands, you'll see more different information like that. Quick example of a flyout menu. Flyout menu that would be consistent across all pages. If you have a newsletter, subscribe, sign up, that will also show up here in this case. And then here we have our footer, right? Footer menus. All that text will be consistent, social media icons, text here for the footer, and then also that logo, privacy policy. So all this will appear on every single page, right? So if I go to the donate, there's that exact same information right there. So I want to show you where you can go to access your assigned content if you ever need to make changes in the future or need to again share with your team or the members where they can go to actually change this information. I'm going to go to all pages and hit view assigned content. Right, so that view assigned content is right here in that all pages. And then that's it. I see things like my logo alternate. Those are your two variations for your logos. One can be like a dark version and the one can be like a light version. So kind of like here, right, we have one for the white and then one here against the contrast. So having two versions of your logos, we have things like the menus. If I click on the header menu, hit edit, manage menu items, I'll see all my different menu items here inside of this pop-up. Like the about, whatever is there will show up exact same order. If I wanted to rearrange these, I definitely could. If I wanted to make a new one, I can hit add, give it a name, set a page, right? I can link it to a page in my installation, or I can give it a custom link. Like if I want to put something not inside of my installation, a completely different page, so outside of it, not inside of Site Planner, I can again give it that link. And that's it. Make sure to hit save and close here. And then once again, save and close here as well. And so you can see things like the header menu, also the footer menu, same exact structure and layout. This is just a great way, again, how you can see all of your site content. It's all in one place here underneath the all pages. And if you ever need to make future changes, all of it you can make here. I just want to show you a quick example for the logo. So most times we'll have it here in the body. You can't see it though because it's white. But if you ever want to change it, go over here to the image icon, go to File Manager, upload your new image. And you can choose what you want to be there. Okay, that's a quick overview about assigned content. Most things about here have already been made, so you most likely won't be making any new changes for the assigned content. Just another great way to understand how a lot of configuration work is done prior before even building the pages. Things like the shopping cart, log, and register. So this is all things already input by being into the system in order for your site to function. I'm going to go ahead and reload this just so we don't have to see that anymore. Right, to access that again, right click, hit view assigned content. There you go. Okay, so that has been a quick overview about assigned content. I'm going to come over here now to my test page again. So I am making a new page and I want some content on it. So this is a great way to understand more about the different content types and just ways we can fill a page with content, simple techniques to make just more efficient process when it comes to building pages instead of Site Planner. Okay, so I'm inside of my test page and I'm also going to use just this home page as an example. So I have something to go based off of. So I recommend just, again, following your home page makes things easier just to see to the site page with already existing content and versus our new one, which doesn't have anything on it. So I'm starting here at the very top and just going through the page here. Okay, we'll notice a couple things. So this here is static content. This one here with the check mark represents a static content item. And so how do I know that? If I right click this, I push show and explore. This is one of our great tools right here. So next with the eyeball, Show and Explorer will show me where does this content live in my Content Explorer, right, in our library. So, great, right now it shows me it's inside this folder. And if I look back at the type, right, I see this is a static type. Right, easy enough. This is a static type. If we go ahead and hit edit, I see here a title. So this is the exact same title I have here at the very top. If I ever wanted to change it, I could change it right here. Right, there's my title. And I see it also has a button. So nothing in the summary and body. And just a quick overview between both. Body is great for a lot of big paragraph text. It creates, just again, simple styling for all of them. Typically this is where we reserve for body text. And summary, again, very more loosely the exact same thing, but you can save it for maybe little bigger headings, things like that. But they technically do function the exact same way. Here we have our image, right? It's in the background. And I have my button right here. So let's say I want to make a new static content item. So I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to make it inside this folder just to make things easier. I'm going to call this test free title. Okay. Maybe I want some body text. So actually I'm going here just to at least copy some text. Okay, and let's add an image. And we also add a button here. And then I look back in my folder. I'll notice right there's my new test that I just made. I'm going to go ahead and actually make another one. And this one, I'm not going to actually add an image this time. So I'm just going to use this for text. just so you get a key difference there between one that has an image, one that doesn't have an image. And when I make another one, just to show you, I'm calling this static test3 image only. So we have 3 examples. This one here is going to have no text, just an image. So I'm not actually importing even a title this time. So there's no title. I just want the static item for just the text. That's right. So those are just 3 static items I just made easy like that, right? I made one that's just an image. So we just made, right? I have this one that's just text, so no image attached to it. And I have one that's both like the current hero on our homepage. So let's say I want to create this on our test page. Right, I want this static on our test page. I'm going to look here, right, check mark. So I want to use what I just made. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this onto our test page. I'm going to choose, in terms of the position, I'm going to choose hero this time. So what is the position? This is where your content will sit on the page. So very important. Most cases for these are reserved for the assigned content. So things like the header left alternate. Only main options you'd be choosing is just the body or the hero. And as you'll probably notice on some of your other pages, right? So the one at the very top is your hero. This one has hero here for the position. And then everything else is the body. Like on this page. This one here has hero, the position. Everything else is the body. Hero, and there's the body position up here. So I want this at the very top. And then you'll notice here we have different views. Depending on the scenario, right, it will require a specific view. Okay, so I'm actually going to go ahead and choose basic. Even though I know here for this we're using a hero view, but I want to show you a key difference here. Okay, and let's just go ahead and make the text centered. These here are some classes that were hard-coded in our system by our developer. One way to access them is through this little caret or through this little blue box here. So I'll just put up a few classes right here for the static content item. So alignment classes, how I want my text aligned. We're not using any videos in this cases. Visibility, if I want to apply those, maybe I want a specific one to show up on mobile, maybe not on desktop. I can try to use those ones as well. If I have any image styling classes going on, right? If I'm trying to use an image for something specific, I can use those. Here I want my text color to be white, then I'll apply that. And then our heading, right? So heading 1 typically will be the biggest, and then go off smaller to heading 6. I can hit OK, and that's it. So and even I don't have to apply any of these classes. I can choose to leave it as is. I'm going to hit save and close. Okay, so now I should have something here on my test page. I'm going to go over to my test page and refresh it. Okay, so I know my text is there, but it's white and I can't see it. But here I have a big, large image. Okay, so why didn't my section come up more like this one, right? With the text sitting on top and the button. So this is where views come into a huge play, especially for static content item. Best way to describe a static content item, things like your text. So all this here are your icons, or all this text here, and things like this little image, right? This image that's being used here, our buttons, right? All of these things that are sitting in our boxes represent a static content. And so this makes sense, right? Here's my static image and my text, right? So if I go back and let's say I take off my white class so we can see our text. Do you see how our text at the very top here? The test3 title, give now. It looks pretty bad though, right? So I actually go right, I want this text to come up on top of the static, but that's typically not how static items work, right? You'll have the image here, you'll have your text here, buttons. So all of those will usually sit inside of a box. So how do we get it to function a little bit differently up here? In order to do that, we have to use a specific view that was hard-coded into the system called the hero base view. And so that's when I wanted to show you, right, what happens if you choose that basic view instead. So typically then it will react the way it's supposed to as a static content item. Here we're adjusting it so that way it can function more as a wrapper, which we'll get into now. So I'm going to go ahead and put table background resize. Pick a little effect if I want to. And let's go ahead and make it, in terms of height, let's choose normal. Let's hit save and close. And let's go back to our test page now. Much better. So now it's looking a lot more like this section. And that was me using a static content item, similar to this one, right there on my test page. Okay, so static, one of the main types of content you'll use on a page. Definitely, right? Static content does make the majority a lot of the information on pages. If I open these up, you'll notice they all have static content inside of them. So, what is the other type of content here, typically where static content is being nested? These are all called wrappers. And I know these are wrappers, right? If it has these 4 empty boxes next to each other, these represent wrappers. So what happens if I go over here, I'm gonna right click and hit show and explore. So we just left the static content folder now, right? So I'm no longer in static, go over here and now I'm in the wrapper folder. And there's my content block. This is one of the most powerful wrappers having in your system. Here it's called content block. In your system too, it could be called basic wrapper. I know it's a basic wrapper because it says it here in the title and there's no image attached to it. But typically a basic wrapper is just an empty wrapper. So you could also make many basic wrappers if you wanted to. Recommended just to have one that acts as the basic wrapper for everything. So basic wrapper, there's no image attached to it. Typically for wrappers, right, we will attach an image, just like this one here, right? So this classroom background wrapper has an image attached to it. So what are wrappers? Typically wrappers will be anything that's in the background, behind text, behind buttons, right? They act as our background, our layer 1 when it comes to our website. So this white space here, this green space, this white space, this dark blue color in the background, this green, more of the white space, a lot of the invisible space that you don't see, right? A lot of this padding. So here's our classroom image wrapper that's being used here in that background. So there's my image. If I changed it here, it would also change it here as well, right? So it changed my image here in the background. Do you see our static? So static is nested inside of our wrapper. It sits on top of it, layer 2. The top section I wanted to show you is a very special case, right? Since we're using a hero view, we have the static item acting as a wrapper. But, right, in order for it to actually show up in the background, right, we technically have to use a wrapper in most cases. So wrappers are whatever is in the background. So wrappers, great also for things like padding, if you want to create background colors. So I'm doing that on my website. So I'm going to go over here to our empty wrapper. Alright, so you also want to remember, right, that basic wrapper, we never ever want to delete it, add an image to it, because we're reusing it many times again on our website. Why are we doing that? Because there's no image attached to it. Makes it great for that invisible space, where you're creating it for things like background colors, right? We can use it over and over again for different purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that wrapper to our test page, such as that, right? And I'm going to choose body because, right, we've reserved the hero already for that at the top with our hero image. For view, I'm just going to choose basic. And you actually notice in terms of classes, we have a whole lot more classes versus the static content items. The best case for this, we recommend referring to our resource that explains each in detail what each class does. Right, for this, I just want to add some padding. So that's what I'm doing in this example. So let's choose horizontal 5. So it goes from 0.5 to 10, 0.5 being the smallest, 10 being the highest. Right, if I want to add that padding on my sides, right, so that means left and right, I'm going to apply it to the sides. If I only want to choose maybe the left and the right, I could do so also. And let's say I want to add some padding to the top and bottom. I choose vertical padding then. So same exact thing, 0.5 to 10. Let's go ahead and choose vertical 6. And you'll notice here too, I have different colors. Let's go ahead and choose color 3. Right, so all of these 4 colors are hard-coded into your system, right, and they vary. If I want to use these different ones here, right, I'm going to hit OK. And so I don't have to end up keep changing the name for my blank wrapper, right, for that basic wrapper, I'm going to give it a label. So that way I know instead of it saying the name there, I can actually give it a new label. Same thing mainly for organization purposes. I know what each one is. I'm going to call this a new container. And let's go to our page. Okay, right, so now I have a nice green section here. If I go back, actually maybe I don't want color. When I go back here, I can actually change it, right? So maybe instead of color 3, I'll choose color 2 instead. So let's see what happens when I do that. I go back. Great, now I have a different color. Right? I'm going to hit save and close. And one thing I noticed too, pretty cool. You see that parallel effect that's happening in the background here. Right, so all I have to do in order to make that happen is use a class. Okay. So I'm going back now just to show you again. So now our page that used to be empty, now we have a static constant and we have a wrapper. Right, so really it's just using these in different ways to build upon and make new content. Okay, so let's say in this section, right, I want to create a column with an image and a column with some text. Right. So kind of like in my website here. Now there are 2 different ways to do that. I'll show you 2 ways. Okay, so first way, just like this. If I want to create image and some text, how do I do that? Okay. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to actually add another wrapper just to help contain and add some more space to my section. And so I'm going to come over here. I'm actually going to select, instead of side padding, I'm going to choose what's called here container width. And so this is a great way to discuss. So what is the centered class padding? So it just creates equal padding on both the left and the right. And so we have 1300 as the highest, 400 as the lowest. So 1300 just means a little space, left and right equal. 400 would be a lot of space. So let's just go ahead and choose 1300 pixels. And that's it, I'm done. Okay, so one method you can do it. I'm going to go ahead and take my image that I made with my text here. So let's go ahead and take this title. I'm going to go ahead and drag it out into this folder. Okay, so same thing that we kind of did earlier, just now instead of it being directly on the page, it's going to be inside the wrapper. So I no longer can choose the position anymore, just the view. Alignment, nothing, I'm not going to do anything here for my text. For the image style though, I am. I'm going to choose, I want my image to be on the right. And then here for text color, I'm going to choose to make it white. And I'm going to choose heading 1, just because I want it pretty big. Okay, I'm going to hit save and close. And so all I really did was add that class for my image. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so there's my text. And there's my image that's appearing here. So that's pretty quick. All I had to do was just add that one title. And done, right? Easy enough. So we have our text here, and we have our image. So I can even go back to our edit assignment. Going to edit assignment. And I'm going to choose, maybe I want my image on the left. I changed my mind. And right, easy, just like that, I can go ahead and change the order. Right. So key things also to point out here. So edit assignment, right way to really control and tweak how an item acts on the page, right? How does it respond? How does it function? So edit assignment versus editing. Editing is actually changing the content, right? So the items inside of it. And so I'm going to show you one quick helpful tool that's very helpful, but understanding that key difference between edit and edit assignment is crucial here. Right, so I have my content. So I want to show that other method for creating a half column. Right. Hit save and close. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this container, and I'm going to paste it into my page. Right, so we can only paste into pages, not into other wrappers or static content items. So I just copied that and I just pasted it inside of there. I'm going to call this last container. Instead of making color 2, I'm going to go ahead and make this color free. Hit save and close. And there's my last container. So if I go back to my page, I have this gray one here, right? So I know this is the newest one I just made. Okay, so 2 things I just noticed. I just made a copy of this exact same section. This saves a lot, right? If maybe I wanted to create another section, then just again, maybe on a different page, right? The similar layout. So one thing you just have to note here, copying and pasting is a great effective tool for really just helping time-wise when it comes to creating new content. You just have to know, right? So this test 3 title, if I edit this information here, it's also going to edit it here, this test 3, since it's the same exact item, and it's also going to edit it here in Content Explorer. If you edit it in Content Explorer, it's also going to edit it in the site plan, right? Vice versa. So it's called global changes, which is typically a good thing. You just have to make sure, right, to make note of that. If we ever change things like the wording, the image on different pages, or even in the Content Explorer side, right, it's automatically going to update it everywhere. So if I don't want to use this, I can delete this and maybe use a new content. And right, so this is another way that you can actually do that column. So if I go back, just want to make sure. So I should not see this content anymore in this wrapper. Right. Okay, so another method, which might be a little bit more preferred to, depending on how much control you want over things like the spacing and padding around your content. So if I go ahead and put half width column here, and so how am I going to do that? I'm going to create half width column with a class. So you might have noticed here in our classes, right, there are column widths you can do. So same exact thing over here, column classes. Half, third, a fourth, 2/3, 2/4, 3/4. So max columns you can do is 4 columns. Right? So I want to create 2 columns. So I'm going to create a half column here. I'm just adding some padding to the bottom and the sides. Save and close. Right, easy enough. So I want another column. So what I'm going to do is just copy that and paste it. That new half column that I just made, I'm going to put it in that padding wrapper, right? Because I still want it inside though, that section. I'm just going to put it there. So now I'm going to go back. If you remember those other 2 static content items that we made, so this one here is just a title. There's no image attached to this one. I'm going to go ahead, drag that inside that wrapper. I'm going to choose basic. For text color, I'm going to choose white. Heading 1. And that's it, and hit save and close. For my image, which just has my image, I'm going to put in the other half of column. I'm not going to submit any classes. I don't need to use image styles. I'm creating 2 half-width columns manually instead of just using 1 static content item, like in this case. So what it does is technically a lot more faster, right? This one here, though, I can really control, though, how much space I want to do 2/3, maybe 1/3. I could also do that as well. So just another way of creating. If I want to do 2/3, which is maybe a half-width column, or maybe I want to do 1/3 here, then maybe 2/3 here, right? I have the option to do so. So let's go back and see what that looks like. And there's my text. There's my image. Right? If I want to swap them, I still can. I can move this one to the just let me know. myself, I can call this text. Right, here's my image. So I can call this image if I want to make them more specific. Right, just like that. Still easy enough. I can swap them. That was easy. So other key thing to know when it comes to images. So we do typically reserve this for the image field, but I want to show you can actually also put images in the body and the summary. Depends too on your needs for the specific section, how you want to display the information. Right, so what's nice about submitting an image here versus in the image field, I can actually resize the image and make it as big or as small as I want to. So I can choose to make this one really small or really big if I put it in these two fields, the summary or the body versus the image field, right? How it would be, how it comes. I'll go back. Right, we notice now the new image and it's much smaller, have lots of space. So this would just be one case scenario if you wanted to do that. Right, but hopefully this is tracking so far what we've learned when it comes to adding content to our pages. Right, so we just added things like the static content, we've added new wrappers. Right, and we've learned to make half columns, really how you can structure and play around more with your layout to display your information. We've learned a little bit more about classes, right, how you can use things for padding, background colors, and then also for things like columns. But aside from static and wrappers, there are other types of content, such as dynamic content. So you'll see here we have static and we have wrappers. Right? So you're making a new page and you just want to write more information, display it here on your website. Great. But let's say maybe you want to highlight maybe a giving project, maybe a missionary, maybe a specific article. You might have noticed in your specific installation here with the paperclip, these represent dynamic content. And so the way that these are structured is hard-coded in the system, and it makes it very easy to add new dynamic content, like adding a new article, adding a new project, maybe a new missionary, maybe it's a new child, right, for child sponsorship. These all represent dynamic content, and they're all being used rather for giving or for information things like articles, blogs, and such. Here in this case, if I open up a project, I'll notice I have something that's called a detail page. So a detail page is always going to be linked to that specific content. If I go over here to a project summary page, this is a great way of seeing all your dynamic content. So the way this is also displayed is very specific. Here's the detail page. All of this here represents dynamic content. So here I have my general fund. Right, this is mostly a fund that we typically highlight, right, for general giving. Now I can choose to put this on its own page, or, right, like you find it here, it's here on the summary page. Okay, so when it comes to dynamic content, there are specific ways we can display it. So, right, for example, let's say I go to my general fund. I'll see all information highlighting it. You also notice a tab, so this is different from static and wrappers, called campaign information. Things like dynamic content like missionaries, projects, ministries, maybe something that you're giving to, right? They all have campaign information. So just like this, if I want suggested amounts, I can check this off, and I can add those different suggested amounts as such. Right. For example, something like this that has suggested amounts, I can go to campaign info and edit those anytime that I want to for those fixed amounts. So let's say maybe I want to highlight a giving fund on a particular page, right? So instead of maybe my image here, I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Let's say I want to put a project. So I'm going to go ahead. All I'm doing is just taking my project and I'm putting it on the page. So notice, right, like some views, it's very specific and all these are very hard-coded. So you can play around with what different views look like. Really, it's just another way of displaying the information, whether that's an image, just text only, right? Just reordering it around, but it is all hard-coded. So I'm going to choose give input only first. I'm going to hit save and close. Okay, let's go back to our test page. Instead of seeing this image here, I should see the font. Great, right? So now I have my font here. Instead, maybe I don't want to do that view. Maybe I want to do give input only. Right. Maybe I only want to do give input only. But still, right? So I have my dynamic content here. This is static, and this is all sitting inside of a right? So every single one is used for a specific purpose. Most cases, unless you are trying to highlight something like giving or a particular article, dynamic content used in that way, you most likely would just be using wrappers and static content when it comes to making new website content for a page. So that does sum up pretty much everything when it comes to an overview and basics for Site Planner, creating new pages, how to add new pages from scratch, and making new content, whether that's new wrappers or new static content. Right? If I want to make a new wrapper here, easy enough. I know how exactly to do that. Give it a name and title, and I can create a new wrapper here, just like that. I want to make a new static content item. I can use a particular folder, or as long as I'm in the static folder here, I'm always going to be making that specific content type. Easy. And the best way to think too about it, right? You can always reuse wrappers and static content in different places. Keeps things consistent. Again, reusing content, if you do changes here in SitePlan, it's going to change here in Content Explorer. Same thing, vice versa. Content Explorer also changes in SitePlan. Also, just some cool tools that can help you out when building inside of Site Planner. You come here to visibility, columns, and you'll see this here called actions. See a little eyeball? This is just a great way you can hide content on your page if you just want to hide it from the public for maybe a little while, or maybe just for a day or two, right? Depending on your needs there. Right? Do you see how I just hid that section? Did delete it, so it's still there. If I ever wanted to unhide it, easy enough. I can go ahead and just hide that section. Right, just a great way if you're ever unsure about how to delete content, or if you should delete a content. Because you always can choose to remove it, and then you can always add it back from Content Explorer. But once you delete it from Content Explorer, that means it's gone and it's removed from Site Planner altogether. Okay, another great features too is using the search to find anything. You use a slash first. Will act as a URL and find you that specific page. Okay, I just found my GIF page. Another great way to find it is for a specific information. So maybe I'm trying to find a specific static content item, maybe a wrapper, maybe a folder. Right, so using the search is a huge help inside of Site Planner. Same thing vice versa here. I can find content in Content Explorer through that search right here. And best advice to practice makes perfect. So get in there and have fun. Definitely it just takes a lot of learning too and just exploring as well. For more practice, just get you more familiar inside of the system.